man to Spring City Council for July the 7th, 2020. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So Judy, can you display a picture of the American flag?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll all stand. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for
Which it stands,
which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice.
liberty, justice for all.
City Clerk would please call the roll.
City Councilors Judith Chandler,
Present.
John Shada,
Here.
Julie Wolf. Julie Wolf,
Here.
thank you. Susan Wolbrook,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Fortune,
Present.
Councilor Steve Bremner,
Here.
and Mayor John Graham.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. First item of business is approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the agenda as written.
And I'll second that.
Discussion. All in favor, vote aye. Aye.
Aye.
Raise-
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, next item of business is public comment on non-agenda items. And City Clerk, do we have anyone wishing to speak from the public?
So we do. I have a Rebecca Rattery has requested to speak. Let me go ahead and bring her.
Yes, and if I might make the typical introductory remarks, these are comments for items from the public for non-agenda items. We would request that the speaker limit their comments to about 3 minutes. Please provide your name and address. If you'd like to be contacted by the city, please provide your contact information to City Clerk Judy Morgan. And we typically do not respond to these comments, but if an answer is required, we can get back to you. So, thank you.
Okay. So I've just given Rebecca Rattery the ability to speak right now. And if we can just make sure that any speakers provide us with their address for the record.
Hello. My name is Rebecca Rattery. I live at 108 Fairview. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yes, thank you.
Today, it'll be 16 weeks, a full 4 months since the closure of the incline under the city's emergency ordinance. Despite open encouragement from our governor to participate in outdoor activities, despite multiple outdoor recreation variances being granted by the state, and despite repeated requests by a resident and business owner in your community, you have maintained its closure and displayed no urgency in the reopening. You have allowed an arts festival at Memorial Park, but have maintained the closure on the incline, displaying a gross double standard. In the full knowledge that most businesses in your community rely on summer revenue to get through the slower fall and winter seasons, you have chosen to financially cripple a business in your community rather than open the incline. As a group, you've chosen to discriminate in your choice as to which businesses you will support in this community. And we see this, and we will remember. We only have 6 weeks left before families start returning home to prep for the school year. We only have 6 more weeks to earn enough revenue to get us through the fall and winter. As a small veteran-owned business, my partners and I simply cannot continue using our pensions to cover the expenses. I again beg you, please, open the incline and open it immediately. Be the reason why we will be able to open next year and not the reason for the closure of the Iron Springs Chateau. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Judy, do we have any other comments?
So our next speaker is Jay Rohr.
Okay.
And, okay. Jay, I've just given you the ability to speak here.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I am Jay Rohr. I live at 208 Ruxton Avenue. I'm here tonight to implore you to act before it is too late. You have amongst you a bad apple, and you should publicly recognize them with a motion of censure. Councilor Wolf is your bad apple. The argumentative behavior in council meetings, no example necessary, this happens every week. Refusing to vote, which is a clear violation of the charter. Her unpreparedness regarding the agenda, which is a time waste for everyone. Her nasty attitude towards staff, which is overstepping her council role and undermining the hard work done to create the best group of public servants this town has seen in a long time. Her continual statements of fact, with a take-back clause at the end. An example, people in Ruxton don't want the shuttle. At least that is what I've heard. We should find out. Her lack of understanding of the role of council. She's bringing too many years of planning commission baggage and can't make the transition from a this or that planning role to the very wishy-washy nature of the council role. This town deserves better. Please help the citizens of this town to see the light and make a motion of censure to expose Councilor Wolf for the terror she brings to everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. And so that was it for the hands raised, but I do have a statement that Mayor, was Marcy Morrison had asked, but I believe we're going to read that possibly for the one of our agenda items. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah,
Okay.
she had contacted
Just
the
to
city.
confirm that. Thank you.
Judy,
Okay, so,
Judy, we have another hand up.
Yes, the hand just went up.
Okay.
So let me go ahead and, okay, TOSC staff.
Thank you. This is Susan Davies from the Trails and Open Space Coalition. Thank you for this opportunity. The Trails and Open Space Coalition has been around for over 30 years. We are committed to being the eyes, ears, and voice on trails for the region. There have been times when I've wrote letters of support for Manitou Springs for open space projects, trails projects. We went to the TOPS program and supported your idea to buy a piece of property with TOPS money in the city of Manitou Springs to provide more recreational opportunities for the people of Manitou Springs in this region. The wonderful thing about our trails in the region is they serve all our people. They belong to all of our people. In the case of the Manitou Incline, $6 million of tax money has supported that amenity, that amazing opportunity that people have enjoyed for years. We get calls daily from folks wondering, when is it going to open? It's time. We think Colorado Springs came to you with a very good proposal. We think that it is a way to limit access to some extent and yet still allow access when it should be allowed. This belongs to all the people. It deserves to be used by all the people who care to use it. There's a massive process going on right now to build a trail to make it even safer off the north end. So I would ask you, in the spirit of compromise, please work with your neighbors, Colorado Springs. Please come to a solution. Please open it so that it is one of the other amenities we have in this region. It is not like the only trail in the state of Colorado that continues to be closed. It's a blemish on all of us, and it needs to be open. And I would like to turn this over for the remaining minute to the president of Incline Friends.
This is Bill Beagle, same address, 17835 Smugglers Road. Obviously not a resident of Manitou, but I've always considered myself a guest and tried to act accordingly. Some of you already know that we had a merchant's card from 2016 to 2018. We've resurrected that program. We've printed up 500 cards to hand out to our supporters. And this time around, there are 5 additional businesses on there. There are 15 Manitou businesses on there. No cost to the business owners. They will benefit. They decide what discounts they want to offer. So I just want you to know that while Incline Friends is trying to drive business into your community, some of you are trying to drive us away. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Please solve this, open it, and we appreciate your attention to this.
Thank you both for your comments. Thank you. Judy, do we have anyone else?
We do. We have Alan Delwich.
Okay.
Let me just get that taken care of there. Okay. All right. So Alan Delwich.
Hello, Alan Delwich. I live at 210 Via Linda Vista, and I've been a resident of Manitou, taxpayer and resident for the last 38 years. I was a huge champion of opening the incline. I did a lot of work, I supported it, and I feel like we were betrayed by our partners. If you look back 9 years, it was promised that as soon as we got that incline all refurbished and put back together, we would come up with a way to mitigate the excessive use of it. By the way, it is not a trail, it is an attraction. The bar trail, in fact, is a trail, and the overuse and abuse of the bar trail is a direct result of the ridiculous, unmanaged use of the Manitou Incline. I commend council for the past several weeks for the fact that they have not been bullied, and we have to maintain that attitude. We want to open it, certainly, but we have to open it with some kind of rational management plan. The management plan that's being proposed by Colorado Springs is great for Colorado Springs, but it's not great for the residents of Manitou Springs, especially those in the Ruxton corridor. And I really encourage you to continue to not be bullied and to figure out something that works for everybody, not just for a few businesses, not just for the multitudes from out of town who feel like it's their free stair step or gymnasium that they don't have to pay a nickel for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Judy, do we have anyone else?
Yes.
Didn't sound right.
So hang on. Okay, I'm not sure if that's still has a hand up, but so we had a Sal Pace that had indicated he wanted to speak. So Sal, I've actually just put you into the meeting so you can speak. We're on number 3 right now. We're on the.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, this is public
Yes.
comment.
You know, and I'm actually interested in speaking on ordinance number 1120. That's number 3 in new business. Would now be the appropriate time to make comment?
Okay,
No, now is not the appropriate time.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I'll wait till, sorry about that.
Sorry.
Okay.
Judy, Annie Schmidt, what did have her hand up? I don't
She
know.
had her hand up. She did.
Annie, do you still want to speak?
I don't see her hand going up now.
It's up now.
Okay.
Sorry, yes, I do want to request that all of the future incline discussions are.
Annie, can you say your name and your address, please?
Oh, yes, Annie Schmidt, 2 Amethyst Avenue, Manitou Springs, Colorado. I've had some discussions with a number of people who are concerned about the incline discussions being in executive discussions and not open to the public. And there's a lot of feeling of concern and some mistrust about what's going on with the incline, and people feeling either, pro or con opening the incline. I would like to suggest that you consider having all future discussions about the incline available and open to the public, not necessarily for public comment, but just so that we can hear exactly and know firsthand what is going on with the incline. So thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Okay. At this time, I see no other hands being raised.
So we will take that as conclusion of this portion of the agenda. We'll move on to the next item, item F, the consent calendar. We have 7 items on the consent calendar. We have approval of regular meeting minutes for the meetings of May the 19th, June the 2nd, June the 16th, for the special meeting on June the 23rd. Our 5th item is approval of a contract for single residential waste collection services. The 6th item is reappointment of Aaliyah German as a regular member of the Housing Advisory Board. And the 7th item is consideration of Pikes Peak Marathon moving forward for this summer. So with those 7 items, do we have a motion to approve this?
I'll move we approve the consent calendar as presented.
So then we can, do we have a second for that? Okay, we have a second, Council.
No, I didn't second. I have a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We need a second.
We need a second. Councilor Wilbrook, you second? Okay. All right, so motion is second. We can have discussion. Councilor Chandler?
I would like to move item F7 to new business G6. And then I have a few corrections on a couple of the minutes.
And I think maybe what we want to do is remove those items and then approve the consent calendar, what's left of it. So we have motion is second, but we also have
my rationale is that we haven't discussed the Pikes Peak Marathon moving forward before, and it kind of got put on the consent calendar, and I have several questions about it.
Let me ask.
I'll amend my motion to approve the consent calendar as presented, however, moving item F7 to new business G6.
I'll second that. Thanks.
I'm sorry, Susan, you had seconded.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just going to do that.
Second. Okay, so now the motion is to approve the consent calendar items 1 through 6 and take the 7th item consideration of the Pikes Peak Marathon into new business. Okay. See a hand out there. Julie, got your hand raised?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to know which minutes require correction from Judith Chandler so that we can move those off of the consent calendar as well for discussion.
June 2nd and June 23rd. They're just minor corrections.
Need to go back to Mayor Pro Tem and ask her if she would.
This isn't mayor, as in no, any council member can pull an item off the consent agenda. You don't even need to do the motion. So maybe just to make it simple, you can have the motion for approval of everything except for the June 2nd minutes, which is F2, and it was F4. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also F7.
Okay.
And those would come off. It sounds like F2 and F4 can be done right after you do the consent agenda.
Sounds
and then you
good.
wanted to put F7 at the end of section G.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to make it easier.
No, that was a constructive comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, so then in essence, we can approve items 1, 3, 5, and 6. Okay. All in favor? Say aye, raise your hand. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. So We'll move on to the first item that was removed, the June 2nd regular meeting minutes. Counselor Chandler, you'd expressed some concern about that, so.
So under H, hearings number 2, it says upon a motion by, and there is not a counselor's name, and a second by Counselor Wolbrecht. So I do not know if any city council member remembers making that motion, because their name is not listed there. So it was the ordinance 0820. So it just says upon a motion by and a second by Councilor Wolbrecht, but it doesn't have the original council member's name who originated the motion. And it's June 2nd, and it's H, hearings number 2, and it starts with a sentence, upon a motion by. Does anybody remember making that original motion?
Could I recommend that Judy just go back to the tape and bring the minutes back at our next meeting?
That would just be that. Okay. That'd be fine. That's my own on those minutes, and I have a very minor issue on the June 23rd minutes too. So what does council want to do? Do they want me to make my other recommendation for the 23rd minutes?
Yeah.
It's under executive session. Executive session number 2, that sentence just isn't finished. It needs to have the complete section 5.1 and the rest of that sentence.
Yeah, I see. That's correct. We can do that administratively.
Yeah, and
that's just the agenda item title.
2 issues that I had.
So I think the sentiment here is that we want to send those 2 sets of minutes back, the minutes for June the 2nd and June the 23rd, and ask the city clerk to flesh out those inconsistencies.
Mayor, on
Yes.
the last set of minutes that we're referring to, it's just somehow part of the title was deleted, so we can just add that back in. That's an administrative thing. It's not really, I mean, it's part of the minutes, but it's something administratively we could add in so they could be approved with that correction, because we'll just pull off what the title was and add it, complete that.
Okay. So then we could, Councilor Chandler, does that seem reasonable that we?
That's fine. That's fine with me.
Okay, so would you like to make a motion to approve the June 23rd minutes as
amended?
With
As
correction?
amended.
As amended,
Yes.
and I guess while we're at it, with to send the June 2nd minutes back for corrections.
Yes, the correction, the one correction under H2. So do I need to make a motion of those 2, or?
Yeah, I guess it would be best if you could state that, please.
Okay, so I move that we correct the June 2nd, 2020 regular meeting minutes, item H2, and the June 23rd, 2020 minutes, executive session number 2, and approve them as amended.
Julie, is that a second? We have a second?
Second.
Second by Julie Wolf. Okay, any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, vote aye. Show of hands.
Aye.
Any opposed, saying nay? Okay, so those meeting minutes are approved, subject to directed further action.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so that takes us into new business. Since we're doing the marathon as item G6 at the end of new business. First item, Black Lives Matters proclamation. So essentially here, this is the proclamation that we looked at 2 weeks ago at our work session on June the 23rd. It's been put into the form of a proclamation, so I will go ahead and read it. And then this being a proclamation, we don't need to vote on it, but I think it would be appropriate for council members to have an opportunity to make comments. So let me go ahead and get this, read this. Whereas the killing of George Floyd is a traumatic, disturbing event and a long series of social injustices, and the people of Manitou Springs have responded with understandable disgust and revulsion. The continuing social unrest across the country is felt even in our small, generally tolerant community. What is and what should our response be? And whereas we see ourselves as a fair people, a compassionate people, the recent disturbing events are profoundly unsettling, and as we hold a mirror to ourselves, we ask in what ways can we reinforce the continuing quest for justice, for tolerance, for equality. And whereas we are encouraged by the recent passage of Colorado Bill 20-217, the Colorado Law Enforcement Integrity Bill, signed by Governor Paulus. Colorado is the first state to adopt these measures designed to eliminate police brutality and establish a higher level of accountability among police officers. And whereas, as a city, we have turned the mirror inward to review the policies, practices, and training of our police officers and city staff. This has been reassuring for the most part, but those recent events have crystallized our understanding that this needs to be a way of life. Briefly, we believe the department's approach to community policing emphasizes fairness and approachability. Manitou's small-town flavor and informality need to be reflected in our law enforcement style, and we believe we are achieving that. We will continue to foster good communications between our officers and our citizens. And whereas racial injustice is bitterly conspicuous across America, particularly in light of recent events, police brutality is a real concern. Too often it has been ignored and tolerated by officials. It remains a great challenge to our society. And whereas individually each of us bears responsibility for making our world better. Each of us needs to pursue, demand, and exhibit fairness. Each of us needs to breathe compassion into our community's life. We all need to demand and practice equality. And whereas, let's all take this to heart. Let's make our actions a resolute commitment to build equality and fairness while ending racial injustice. Now, therefore, I, John G. Graham, Mayor of the City of Manitou Springs, on behalf of the 2020 Manitou Springs City Council, do proclaim we are committing our attention to listening, learning, and acting to advance equality and fairness and to improve the quality of life and health for all in the City of Manitou Springs, El Paso County, Colorado. Adopted the 7th day of July, 2020. At that, I would open up to any comments council members would like to make, if there are any. Councilor Chandler? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to just say that overall it's outstanding. If I were to change one thing, and I think it's important, it would be the third whereas, and I would make that a little stronger and say that we support the recent passage of Colorado Bill 20-217, which is very direct in its the decision to not allow chokeholds and so on and so forth. So that would be the only change I would make. I would change that to whereas we support the recent passage of Colorado Bill 20-217.
Additional comments? I would have no objection to making that change if the rest of council wants it. Okay, council, I will ask then if you, Councilor Shieta, you had your hand up, I think.
No, thank you, Mayor Graham, for taking that under consideration. I assume that that's just a friendly amendment, so to speak, to your proclamation, right?
Right. I mean, we don't really need to do a vote for a proclamation, but in the sense of trying to get it right, yeah, I'd be up for it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll ask council then if you'd like to take the proclamation with Councilor Chandler's suggestion to change the verb to support. We support the recent passage. I'd be happy to do that, and we can take this. Let's do a show of hands. All in favor, say aye. Okay, so moved. All right. All right, so if the city clerk, if you would go ahead and make that amendment, and that'll make it official.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item of business is appointment of Rebecca Wood as a regular member of the Park and Recreation Board. Okay. Denise, are you presenting on this? Or
I could. I was at Parab last night.
okay, that'd be great. All right.
Yeah, sorry, Denise.
No, that's fine. I didn't know if you or Roy was doing it.
Yeah, or Roy could. Just Rebecca came to the last meeting, not last night, but the last month's meeting, and is supported. She's got a fascinating resume, has young kids, and I think I would certainly support her appointment. I think she'll be a good addition to PARAB, and PARAB is very much in need of members right now, so it's a good thing. So I would be willing to make a motion unless someone else has comments. Hearing none, I will move to appoint Rebecca Wood as a regular member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Second.
Counselor Wood, second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of appointing Rebecca Wood as a regular member of the Park and Rec Board, raise your hand. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next item, item 3G, first reading of ordinance number 1120, an ordinance amending section 5.09.170 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code to extend the hours of operation of medical marijuana centers and retail marijuana stores to midnight. Okay, and Denise, is Christine gonna speak to this?
Yes, we should bring her over. So yes, she is.
She's on her way. Hi, Christy.
Hi, good evening. So tonight is the first reading of this ordinance. You can find this for those watching tonight. This is on page 84 of the posted PDF packet. That includes the proposed ordinance modification, as well as includes links that provide some background information and what we in Manitou have already approved in the past with regulating the industry, as well as at the state level what those rules and regulations are. So we reviewed this in a work session, City Council work session. Tonight would be the first reading for this. In the next upcoming regular meeting will be the second hearing. This first hearing tonight is typically, as you know, without public input. I was advised this afternoon that there may be public input tonight. So the second hearing, which would be coming up, will also be one in which we solicit public input. This particular ordinance came about, staff was directed to do some research based on conversations between community members, business affected by this, and city council members. So we were directed to do some research on this item and consider proposing this. So that's what we have done here. This particular ordinance would extend our hours of these businesses in town to midnight. This brings us in line with what the state regulations are. And with that, that's pretty much what I have.
Clerk Morgan, I believe we had a written comment, set of comments. I guess it would be appropriate to read those now.
So this is a comment from Marcy Morrison. A few years ago, Manitou Springs voted by a small margin to allow recreational marijuana to be sold at 2 locations. Now there's a proposal before council to allow the stores to remain open until midnight. Howard and I are very opposed to this proposal, even though the city may eke out some extra revenue. I am not ignorant of the need for revenue, but it appears that council should be able to dive deep before coming up with this easy decision. At the present time, the stores are open till 10, which is a reasonable hour. There have been 3 times that the stores have been given permission to increase their hours starting at 7 p.m., then moving to 9 p.m., and then 10 p.m. The council at that time of their vote said they would consider reasonable hours in the future, and midnight is not reasonable. Thanks for your efforts, Marcy Morrison.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Hands up currently as well, Mayor.
Beg your pardon?
Hands are going up if you are taking public comment.
I'd like to give council an opportunity to discuss this. First, this is a little unusual. We typically on first reading don't take public comment. However, we had an interesting situation. I mean, when we first started looking at this, we asked for the police to comment on to see if they had any concerns, and they didn't. And we also asked for some direction from city staff to see if there were neighborhood comments. And it's typical, when you initially start working on something, you don't get much in the way of public comments. And then as you get closer to the, to the due date, when it actually becomes actionable, there's quite a bit of interest. So I'm in, in following our convention, I'm reluctant to open up a whole lot of public comment, but at the same time, I do feel, we want to get a sense of what the neighborhood would like. So council, if I could get some input from you on that, I would appreciate that. Councilor Wilbrook?
Yes, my only comment.
Oops, you're muted, Susan.
Okay. Let's try that again. I have received, my only comment is that I have received quite a bit of phone calls and emails about this, particularly from the Crystal Hills neighborhood, which is sort of, in close proximity to these locations. And I think the one thing that they consistently asked for, aside from perhaps not approving this, is the ability to speak on it. So I, for some reason, in my memory, we've always commented on first readings, but I Zoom and COVID have changed so much. That's my other concern too, is that I don't want to miss anybody during this time when we're not having face-to-face meetings.
And typically the public hearings are held as part of the second reading. But given the difficulty of meeting and doing things over Zoom, I think it'd be nice to be a little bit proactive. Would council have any objection if we say, Mayor Pro Tem Fortune?
Yeah, sorry. I have not received a lot of input, but that in part concerns me. I thought we had asked that additional notification to the community go out on this, and I am not familiar, I have not seen anything that has gone out to notify the public in addition to just the newspaper notifications. So I am not comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable in going forward with this. I'm not, the process seems to be rushed. I feel like we had a compact with the community on regulating these businesses, and this seems to be continuing to break that compact. I'm not comfortable that we went and asked them to submit. We basically asked them to ask for this. I'm not crazy about us getting involved in or asking businesses to do something necessarily. I don't know that that's our role. So anyway, I'm quite uncomfortable with how this whole thing is going down. And I would certainly, at a minimum, like more opportunity for the public to weigh in, particularly since I, for one, didn't get my newspaper until yesterday. It wasn't until I have it, the Pikes People, and it's delivered to my house. I didn't see anything in there on it. I saw nothing on social media about it. So I've got concerns.
Mayor, if I may say something about that regarding the notification on social media. So there's a process for ordinances, and we do try to follow that process to the T, so that we're not treating any one issue that's before council differently than another, so that there's no perceived or otherwise expectation or preference being given to one subject matter or another. So social media is not something that is obviously mandated. We have certain places that information goes, and it does get posted appropriately so that we are transparent, we're following the rules. And so the concern about putting something special out for this one topic was a concerning, something we were a little concerned about. And so my suggestion was to, if we put something on social media, it would just be to remind the public that our agenda items are posted, that they're listed on our agendas, and to reference those and be sure look at those very closely every week when they come out so that they know which meetings they might want to attend to speak on certain items.
Councilor Wolf?
Thank you. I understand, Mayor, what the traditional routine is here. However, since you already allowed one member of the public to have her statement read by Judy Morgan on this topic, it seems unfair to disallow the other people. It seems like if we're going to let one person talk, but then we don't let the other people talk, well, how is that fair? So I wonder if just for tonight, if we could consider allowing the public to participate and provide us feedback, because I don't want people to think that you're only allowed to break the rules if you're Marcy Morrison.
That's a relevant point. Yes, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, and Judy, I thought we had this discussion I believe it was 2 weeks ago when this came up, and I would ask Jeff again to weigh in because I thought, perhaps my memory is wrong, but my memory was we got advice that it was in fact okay to advertise this a bit more. So perhaps I misunderstood.
Would you like me to comment on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so typically I advise that when you're dealing with a quasi-judicial issue, where there's an application before you on a specific issue, like a piece of property from an owner, something like that, then you need to follow the exact notification process because there's due process rights that are involved, and you shouldn't be changing how notice is provided for one application versus another. When it's legislative in nature, I mean, it's a policy question, really. I understand your clerk's point, which is good, that you don't want to give one issue more publicity than another. But for policy matters like ordinances, legislation, anything else that's not quasi-judicial, it's really up to City Council if they want to provide more notice rather than less. So you have the ability to provide extra notice because there's an issue that you think is particularly important that the public be made aware of. So as Mayor Pro Tem Fortune mentioned, it really is different in this case. So it's up to you. It's not improper to do it either way. It's really up to you.
And I think Christine had her hand up next. Christine?
I do, thank you. Yes, we did discuss that 2 weeks ago that we would increase and do some additional publicity around this. Mr. Parker did weigh in the manner in which he just did. Because this was the first hearing, we did not, from an internal planning staff perspective, move forward with any additional publicity. The expectation was that since the second hearing is for public input, at that time following tonight's, that was what we expected to do. We did not expect tonight was going to be public comment. So I apologize for not understanding that you wanted this publicized for tonight. Just being public comment, public input tonight kind of threw things off just a little bit from what I understood and what we discussed.
Yeah, maybe we are throwing you a curveball on this, so bear with us, okay. Councilor Chandler, you had your hand up next.
Well, the attorney answered 2 of my questions, so thank you. But I just wanted to say that I do support Mayor Pro Tem Fortune because that was also my understanding from the first time that when we discussed this in the work session that we were going to get additional input. So that was my takeaway as well, and I support that.
Council, let me ask you in kind of with a broad brush, would you have any objection to if we entertained comments from the public? We maybe ask them to make brief comments, but give them an opportunity to speak. It seems to me like that would be a fair thing to do. Does anyone have any objection to that? So raise your hand if you have an objection. Okay, so it looks like we're agreed. We'd like to give the people an opportunity to speak. Judy, can you give us an idea how many people want to speak to this topic?
At this moment, I have 3 hands that are raised, so it appears just 3 people for right now.
Okay, so what I would suggest to council, and if it's okay with you all, we'd give those 3 people 2 to 3 minutes to express their concerns, and then we'd have a better understanding what we want to do. So if that's agreeable, Judy, can you bring the first person in?
Okay, this is Justy Clear.
Hello, my name is Justin Clear. I'm the manager at the Maggie's Farm in Manitou. I live at 403 Springfield Avenue in Colorado Springs. I just wanted to be here to make myself available for any questions or comments, and to let you guys know that we are trying to listen to the any of the people that are against it, and try to be proactive on any of those reasons, and make everything work out. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next hand that's raised is Sal Pace.
Hi, thank you. This is Sal Pace, and I'm here in a capacity as a consultant and representative with Maggie's Farm, Manitou as well. In a past life, I served as a legislator and a county commissioner in Pueblo, and we had extended hours for sales in Pueblo. And just like Justin, I just wanted to offer myself up for any comments or questions or background on any of these policy matters. If anyone from council or the city would like to reach out, I'm happy to make myself available. My email to chat is sal@smpace.net, and happy to hop on a phone call with anybody. And I'll give my personal cell phone as well. Personal cell phone is 719-250-8492. Thank you very much.
Mr. Pace, for the record, we do ask everyone to give us their address.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that is 2105 Hillside Circle, Pueblo, Colorado, 81008.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready? And we have Alan Delwich is our next speaker.
Hi, I'm Alan Delwich. I live at 210 Via Linda Vista. For the record, I live far closer to both marijuana stores than anybody that lives in Crystal Hills. First point, it was stated that it was a close election that passed the marijuana ordinance. That is factually incorrect. The vote was 64.97% to allow and 35.3% oppose. So it wasn't even close. Second point, by extending the hours, we are only living within the spirit of what Amendment 64 dictated, which was we would treat marijuana as similar as possible to how we treat alcohol. It's a pretty simple case. I don't see a threat from this, and I strongly support you pass this. Thank you.
Is that it for the comments?
Mayor, I don't know. I just got a text from Gary Smith. He's trying to get in and can't, and I know he wants to speak on this. So
That's right.
we're
Okay,
just
can
giving
we?
it to him, right? He's been trying to get in, and I just got a text, so I don't know.
Okay, so let's.
You may not want to wait for that. I'm just letting you know.
Do we have any besides Mr. Smith? Okay, so let's give him a chance.
We just sent it to him just now. And again, I don't know if you want to wait. I just wanted to share that.
Okay. Well, I guess in the meantime, we've got a little bit of unusual set of circumstances here. I guess the intent was to look at this on first reading tonight. It sounds like maybe there'd be some thought of postponing this to allow more of a public comment process. If council would like to entertain that.
Mayor Mark Snyder just raised his hand.
Okay, can we bring him in?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I just thought I'd fill in the gap while we're waiting for Gary Smith to get on. And just a little history, you know, having been mayor at the time that we instituted recreational marijuana. We started at 7, I think out of an abundance of caution and recognition that, you know, about a third of the community was not supportive. I realized that and I think there was always an expectation at that time that that was to be revisited. So I know we have extended to, I think, 9 o'clock and then extended to 10 o'clock. You're looking at 10 to 12 now. Our concerns then back in 2014, I don't think are valid now. You know, I recognize it could bring in a different element of people. We certainly don't want people leaving bars if and when our world gets back to normal, thinking it's a great idea to add another substance into their body. But I think they've shown a great track record of being a very responsible businesses. And I think if you go forward with this, you can expect the same from both businesses, that they will, you know, be responsive to any concerns or any issues that might arise. So for my 2 cents, I don't think that this would be a real game changer in regard, in terms of the impacts on our community. Thank you.
Mr. Snyder, if you could give me your address for the record, please.
My apologies. It's 516 Crystal Hills Boulevard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Judy, are we having any luck with Gary Smith?
I haven't.
Nope, not at this time, sorry.
Seen him pop up yet. We did send him the link though.
I'm sorry?
He was sent the link for the meeting though.
Okay. And
well, while we're waiting, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
I understand that there's a couple people here from Maggie Farm. So Mr. Clear, I would ask, is this something that you want?
Let me get him back in the speaking mode here.
And I don't know if there's anyone from Emerald Fields on the line, because I would pose the same question to them.
I don't. Okay, here he is. Sorry. Okay.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely something we look forward to. You know, if we could get an extra couple hours on there, we're not trying to cram as many people in there throughout the day. We can kind of get people spread out a little bit more, spaced out a little bit more, and then, you know, not force people to try to get what they need in, you know, less hours. And everything's been going well, you know, with the security there. We don't really have any issues at night. You know, it's definitely a lot slower than in the day, so we don't have to worry about the traffic and all that. So it's definitely something that we're looking forward to.
Any other questions
Thank
for
you.
Mr. Clear?
I would just like to, again, commend Maggie Farms, because I do believe that they've done an excellent job of running their operation. I'm just not sure about this.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mayor, we do have another hand that has gone up. Looks like Gary has managed to come in, and then there's also a Charles. I don't have a last name, but maybe we can have Charles, since he had his hand up for a few minutes here. Okay, so Charles.
This is Charles. My name is Charles Houghton. I'm an attorney for Emerald Fields. I'm kind of with everybody else. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. On behalf of Emerald Fields, we welcome the opportunity to answer any questions that you've got. Emerald Fields is definitely in favor of the expanded hours. The representative from Maggie's Farm put it very well, given the current COVID problem, being able to spread out an additional 2 hours is helpful to maintain social distancing and help manage operations at the site. So we're in favor of it. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that Emerald Fields is in favor of moving forward and extending the hours, and we would welcome the opportunity to continue to serve the community. Thank you.
Hey, can we get your address, Charles?
Yes, my address is 1408 East Monument Street in Colorado Springs.
Thank you.
And I didn't catch your last name, Mr. Was it?
It's Houghton, spelled Houghton. Sorry, I just put my first name in. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I'm going to now bring Gary Smith over. I believe this is Gary Smith. It just says Gary.
Yeah, this is Gary Smith. I was just wanting to speak on this. Being around when we started the marijuana use in Manitou and selling of retail marijuana, there was the community was kind of split. Even though the vote was to support it, it was a split vote. So we, being on council at that time, we looked at and listened to a lot of the community, and we tried to make things work, which was hours, how their place would look, signage, everything else. I don't feel personally at this time that we're doing the community a justice by adding an extra 2 hours. Reading in the paper, I don't understand where that you can go from 5% to a 15% increase in revenue. I don't really think this is a wise choice for council to make at this time. And that's pretty much where I stand on this.
Gary, we need your address just for the record, please.
It's 450 Crystal Hills Boulevard, Manitou Springs.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Judy, is that everybody now? It seems like we've gotten everything. Okay, great. So, council, I guess the item was to entertain this on first reading. I guess now we maybe have some second thoughts. Do we want to postpone this? Do we want to go ahead with passing on first reading? Would anyone like to make a motion? Councilor Chandler? Oh, you're muted.
I want to thank everyone who commented, and I would like to move that we pass on first reading ordinance number 0520, an ordinance of this, I'm sorry, wrong one. First reading ordinance number 1120, an ordinance amending section 5.09.170 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code to extend the hours of operation of medical marijuana centers and retail marijuana stores to midnight.
Second. We have a second. Julie Wolf. That's a second. Okay. Any discussion? Looks like we have no discussion then.
Actually, may I make a comment?
Yeah, Councilor Wolf, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'd like to just note for the record that none of the objections were based on any concrete examples or concrete complaints about problems or anything other than emotions or reactions, which are valid, but there's no crime, there's no concern about traffic. They've got their 24/7 security there. They've been, I guess it's unanimous, very respectful as a business, and so I just think that's noteworthy that we haven't heard any problems. That's it.
Any further discussion? We have a motion in a second. I think we'll go ahead and we'll ask you all to vote. All in favor, say aye. Raise a hand. Opposed? Say nay. Raise a hand. Nay. So we've got, I'm sorry, I'm going to have, okay, so we have
4 to 3. Okay,
we have Fortune, Wilbrook, and Graham opposed. So I guess, could the ayes please raise your hand? Do it again, just for, remember, okay, thank you. Okay, so it's motion passes 4 to 3. Thank you. So the ordinance is passed on first reading. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who commented.
And if I could say one thing, I would be open to this in the future. I'm just not open to it now. And I, again, want to reiterate my compliments on both of the stores for the incredibly professional job they're doing. Thank you.
And I will say, we'll make sure that we do the notice accordingly. Planning will take that on and make sure everybody's notified and that we do the social media accordingly as you have requested.
Thank you. Next item, item G4, first reading of ordinance number 0520, an ordinance of the City of Manitou Springs, Colorado, repealing and reenacting chapter 17.04 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning historic preservation. And
I think Michelle's coming over for this. Is that correct, Christine?
Michelle should be coming over as well.
Okay.
Okay.
I will bring her over. Are you staying on for this as well, Christine?
I can stay on. It's fine.
Kristen, thank you for your comments on the marijuana ordinance.
Absolutely. We'll figure out. I don't know that we have a standard plan. We will definitely work with Alex and get it figured out. So.
Good evening.
Hi, Michelle.
Does everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Michelle, if you'd like to go ahead and present on the historic preservation ordinance, the changes.
Certainly. I don't have a lot to say. We've talked about this at least at 2 council work sessions. We've made the changes that were requested at the last work session. This is a culmination, I almost couldn't say it, of quite a lot of work between staff, the HPC, a few members of the public, and then we also got council input. The main crux was to create a better process for determining the status, whether contributing or non-contributing of properties, especially in instances where the property owner might not agree with staff's take on it. So we've done that. I think the ordinance is in pretty good shape. We were able to make just a few tweaks here and there that I think help strengthen it as well. I'm happy to answer questions, but I think most of you are at least familiar enough, hopefully, with the revisions. Like I said, I'm here as a resource for you.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for Michelle? Okay. Looks like we're pretty content with our knowledge of this. Well, we could entertain a motion. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure, I will.
Okay.
I move that we approve on first reading ordinance 0520, an ordinance of the City of Manitou Springs, Colorado, repealing and reenacting chapter 17.04 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning historic preservation.
Great. We have a motion.
Second that.
Second. I see seconds by both Councilman Shade and Councilor Wolf, so I think we're safe there. Any further discussion?
And there's no public comment. Nobody's raising their hand.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah, this was first reading. Okay. All right. There being no further discussion, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye. Show of hands. Okay. Okay. Councilor Brenner, that was an aye, was it? An aye. Okay. All right. So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
council.
Thank you.
And
you,
thanks
Michelle.
to planning staff, because they ended up doing a really good job on that. So
Yes, yeah, and they worked well with the citizens, so I think it was a good win-win situation for everybody.
So do we. Thank you.
Good. All right. Item G5 is consideration for an intergovernmental agreement with the Pikes Peak Library District regarding the Manitou Springs Library. My understanding, John.
Are you
Spears
going
is
to
here.
introduce this? Mr. Parker, are you introducing this one?
I'd be happy to do so if you'd like.
Okay.
And we
Yeah,
do
please.
have we do have the library here. We have John here to also to speak on it if you would like.
Okay. Mr. Parker, you have the floor.
Great, thank you, Mayor. So as most of the council knows, we've been looking at the Carnegie building as a result of the library district informing us that they find that it's really not in physical shape to provide the kinds of services that they want to provide. In fact, it's the only one of their facilities that is not fully ADA accessible. And so they would like to continue to provide library services in the city, but from another location, while the city spends time evaluating whether or not it's financially and physically feasible to make modifications and remodel the Carnegie building as the city deems fit. And that could be in a manner that would make it appropriate for the library district to move back into the Carnegie building once those remodels are done, but it may not. So, but right now they are feeling the need to provide more accessible services to their clients and including people in Manitou Springs. So right now we have two agreements that are in place with the library district. The first one is an IGA they put together when the city was voting to include into the library district. That agreement contains mostly provisions dealing with how the inclusion would occur, the obligations of the parties, but it does contain a reference to a lease from the city to the library district for the Carnegie building. So the second agreement is a lease where the city has agreed to lease the Carnegie building to the library district for a period of 10 years, which expires at the end of 2023. And that is about a $9,000 a year lease. But the library district has certain rights under that lease to terminate it if it's not meeting its needs. And after discussing it with the city council, my understanding is city council's amenable to allowing the library district to terminate the lease and move out of the Carnegie building and into a new building in the city. So I put together a new IGA that terminates both the existing IGA and the current lease, and basically mirrors some language from the existing IGA about how the library is going to use its best efforts to continue to provide services in the city and how the parties will cooperate on planning for the Carnegie building remodel if there will be one, with the intent that financial considerations working, the library district will move back into the Carnegie building if everything works out after the city finishes its planning process. So that's the general structure of what is being proposed with this new IGA.
Piers, do you have comments that you'd like to make?
Yeah, I would just like to thank City Council for coming to this point. And I just want to reiterate that the Pikes Peak Library District is very much committed to maintain a presence in Manitou Springs. That has been our intention from the very beginning, and it will continue to be our intention. And that was the spirit of the original intergovernmental agreement, and it carries through in this one. I know that some of you have taken a tour of the library with myself and Gary Seiling, our Chief Facilities Management Officer, and I think that you saw some of the concerns that the Pikes Peak Library District does have. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with the city to see what can be done with the historic Carnegie. But right now, we are in a place where if we are to continue to provide services to the city of Manitou Springs in the way that really puts it on par with what we offer to the rest of El Paso County, we need to move out. And we have begun negotiations with another agency, and those are going extremely well. So it is our intention that we will be in another location in Manitou Springs shortly, if you, and then of course if my board as well votes to approve this new IGA. So thank you, and any questions you might have, I'd be more than happy to answer.
And I think it would be appropriate for them to speak to this. And Councilor Chandler, you had your hand up. Would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Mayor. So we broke ground on the Carnegie Library in 1910, and we opened the doors for business February 2nd, 1911. That's 109 years. And this is a real hot button issue because the residents of Manitou are very passionate about our library, as am I. And we want to do the right thing. So I do want to reassure the citizens of Manitou that there will be robust community involvement as we move forward. However, I had an opportunity to tour the library with Councilor Shada, Administrator Howell, and members of the PPLD who have been just overwhelming and wonderful to work with, and look forward to continuing to work with them. I did some research and had to educate myself about ADA compliance in addition to other issues the building might have because of its age and condition. There are 12 ADA criteria for a library to meet standards to be an ADA compliant library. It's not just getting in the entrance or providing the right parking. It's the distance between the shelving, for example, and a number of other things. So we need to take a really good, strong, courageous look at the library to see if it's going to meet our needs in the future. Take a look at financially what that would look like. Get someone in there to tell us, because with an old building, we're going to get some surprises. And to entertain some of the options that the residents want to entertain, including potentially refurbishing the Carnegie Library, expanding it, moving elsewhere, and repurposing that building. And I'm not, those are all issues we can talk about in the future, but the most important thing is to keep library services in Manitou, continue our wonderful relationship with the PPLD, and then as soon as we have done that, take a look at the library and present options moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Judith. Councilor Shada, do you have comments?
I don't have any comments. I think, Judith, that was a great introduction and conclusion.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Well, tonight we're being asked to approve the new IGA with the library district regarding the Manitou Library. Would entertain a motion? Okay, Councilor Chandler.
I move that we approve the IGA with the Pikes Peak Library District as written.
I second that.
We have a second from Councilor Shada. Do we have any further discussion?
Do we have any public comment, Judy?
I do not see any hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. Oh, there is one.
Oh, one just came up.
Sorry, Mira, I just didn't want us to miss that one.
So Rob Dannon.
Spirit of the evening, let's go ahead and bring Mr. Dannon in and get his comments.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm Rob Dannon. I live at 112 Cave Avenue here in Manitou Springs. And thank you, Judith, for the words that you just spoke. It's encouraging to hear that coming from council of a cooperation and collaboration, not only with PPLD. I being one who's had a major part in the development of the relationship, it's encouraging to hear both from John Spears and from council that there is an ongoing desire to maintain that relationship, particularly in relation to the Carnegie. And so in reading over the IGA, the current IGA, there are some things that are encouraging. I won't go over them, of course, now, but hopefully in future discussions, some things I do have questions on. And again, hopefully we'll have that opportunity to sit down between the PPLD, the city of Manitou, and as Judy, you said, that concerned citizens here in Manitou and interested citizens, where we can have direct communication and collaboration in resolving this issue and making the Carnegie Library accessible to all. Now and into the future. So I just wanted to put those thoughts out, and looking forward to, this is just the start of a long and involved process, but to let you know, I and many others within the community want to work with the city, with PPLD, to make this happen. So thank you for getting the ball rolling in order for this to happen. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. We have further questions or discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Fortune?
Yeah, I also appreciated Judith's comments, and I'm very encouraged by this way forward. And I would like to recommend that we look to the match committee to help us come up with good recommendations for the future of this as well. Thanks.
Additional comments? If not, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor of approving the IGA with Pikes Peak Library District, say aye. Show of hands. Motion passes unanimously. Good, thank you. Mr. Spears, thank you, and please extend our appreciation to your co-workers and your staff. We appreciate your cooperation. Look forward to working with you. Right. Thank you all. Let's see. Okay, so next item of business. This was the one that was moved off the consent calendar. This be consideration of the Pikes Peak Marathon. Okay.
We need to bring Megan over. And
anyway, we've got 3 others I was going to bring over. We have a Ron Ilgen, Jeff Welshire, and Carrie Harden.
Thank you.
Find them.
Hi, City Council. Sorry for putting this on the wrong section of the agenda tonight, but thank you for moving me to the right one. I just wanted to have a discussion with you all about the 66th annual Pikes Peak Marathon that's scheduled to happen August 23rd. And staff has spent a lot of time discussing this event and have decided that we as a staff support it moving forward with the extensive COVID precautions that the marathon organizers have put in place. We think that they have a really, really good plan. The state of Colorado, the U.S. Forest Service, El Paso County Department of Health, among many other organizations have already agreed that the marathon has a great plan moving forward. And so I just wanted to get your feedback on it as well. And I do have Jeff and Ron here. They are more than qualified to answer any questions you might have. So I'll go ahead and just open the floor to any questions.
Chandler, I believe it was you had raised questions from the earlier portion of the meeting, so perhaps you would like to speak at this point?
I do have a number of questions, primarily COVID-related questions. First of all, I'm impressed with the degree to which the committee has tried to really look at everything with regards to putting on an event of this size. Knowing that this is the best case scenario and assuming that people are going to do what they're supposed to do, which we all know just walking downtown in Manitou is not what people are doing. So my first question is, do we have 800 registered runners? Do we have, is that how many runners are registered to run 800?
I'll answer that, Counselor. We're allowed a maximum of 800. Right now, we're in the low 700s as the number of runners. So.
And what's the percentage of those registered runners that are either coming out from out of state or coming out from out of the country?
As a rule, they're around 40% are out of state.
40%?
30 to 40%. Mm-hmm. This year, a little less than 40s.
Okay, and since you have been doing this for a long time and probably have some pretty good data, do you have a good sense of how many total number of people that come to the attraction, including spectators, runners, staff, and volunteers?
We, volunteers for just the ascent this year, we're planning about 200 or so, spread up all the way to the summit. Usually we say 1.5 to 2 people per runner come. And I do think, though, this year it will be much less than that, because we are letting them know there's no spectator activity. They're not included in the finish area, etc. So no jumbotron to watch it from, that type of thing. So I would expect it to be lower as far as the number of support people they bring.
So if we took 700 runners at 1.5 people per runner, that's 1,050 people.
Mm-hmm.
And you are not planning on doing the ascent this year, just the marathon?
Yes, just the marathon. Yes, we canceled the ascent. We also canceled the Garden of Gods 10 mile. Mm-hmm.
Well, my concern obviously is COVID related. I just have a concern having both run and participated in the event before many years ago, how the throngs of people, and I do have concerns even in the best of situations, preventing people, for example, from getting into Soda Springs Park and that sort of thing. So I am concerned about having that many people. Now I realize we had an art event this weekend. I did drive through town to take a look at that, but I am just concerned. I just wanted to put that out there, and I've looked carefully at your plan. I do think that you have really tried to address everything you possibly can, and at some point we're going to have to allow more and more of these kinds of events, but my gut is just telling me that August, with COVID, who knows what's going to happen. According to the scientists, because of opening up states, we should have a good indication by the end of July if we're going to see a spike in cases and deaths based on openings for Memorial Weekend and July 4th. So anyway, I just want to express my concerns and open it up for some discussion.
Wolf?
Thank you. This isn't for or against, but it just occurred to me that the number of people anticipated for this event is about the same as the number of people that Karen Paulus is recommending be allowed to come every day to the incline. So it just occurred to me that if the incline were not to be open that day, then the number of people coming into town as spectators and runners would be about the same as the number of people that are going to the incline. So that might possibly be an offset or something to compensate. I realize there's no definite plan yet about the incline, but it's just an observation that the number of people daily is about the same as what Colorado Springs is pushing for, and apparently what our staff is also recommending. That's it.
No, Councilor Chandler?
Thank you for mentioning that. I was going to bring that up based on other discussions and recommend that if the incline is in fact open in August, and I certainly hope it is, that we close it for the marathon. That would if we run the marathon, I just think that just to be as an extra safety precaution, and as a better way of helping the marathon staff pull off this Herculean task of keeping everybody in their lanes and with masks and gloves and so on and so forth, which I think is incredibly impressive. Just want to throw that out as an idea.
Brinkland? Eglin?
If I
Ron?
may, yes,
Sorry.
it's Elgin, that's okay.
Elgin, sorry.
Yeah, no, we have asked and been granted closure of the incline for the last 5 years. It's, you know, important because of having incliners coming down Bard Trail while we have people at sub 6-minute miles coming down Bard Trail. There's quite the safety hazard. So we would in fact request to have the incline closed on Marathon Day. Thank you.
Okay. Good points. Council, do you have any further questions or concerns? Okay. Well, the recommended action is the council voice support for the 66th annual Pikes Peak Marathon taking place August 23rd.
Mayor, I think Steve Bremner had his hand up.
Steve, did you want to speak? I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to express my support for the marathon. I've run it 10 times and I've looked over their plan. I think it looks valid. And there's other races that are going forward, such as the Pikes Peak Ultra this month. So I think that it's going to be a good event and I support it.
Okay. Would you like to make that a motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the marathon for this year.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Nancy Fortune. Any further discussion? Not.
Do you want any public comment? There was a hand up. I don't know if it still is or not. Do you want public comment?
Okay, yeah, if it's.
I don't see a hand up.
We don't have a hand up.
It was Walt Hall, his hand was up.
Okay, well, he doesn't have it up right now, so.
Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute, hold on, we just had it pop up here. Okay, Mayor, is that fine?
Go ahead and bring him in.
This is Walt Hall.
Name's Walt Hall. I just wanted to make a comment that, you know, in the past 5 years, the incline has been closed on the day of the marathon, and it's a good idea to have it closed to be safe for the runners up there.
Mr. Hall, can you state your address, please?
7813 Fort Smith Road, Peyton, Colorado.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to show support for the Pikes Peak Marathon. All in favor, say aye. Show of hands. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All for participating. Okay. Well, that concludes new business. Next item is to receive or act on council correspondence. Anyone like to start off? Councilor Wolf? Oops, sorry.
Thank you. A couple things. I received an email from someone commending the police department for spending time at the incline to keep people off the incline in a friendly way. And I also received a request for a copy of the USGS contract. And I agreed to ask for that. Is that something that I could have someone on staff email me?
Denise, can you speak to that?
Yeah, and is this Dave Wolverton? Because we have sent that to him. Is it Dave that wanted that, Mrs. Council Wolf?
Yes, yeah, it was. And
okay.
He asked me to get it. He didn't say that he's received it from you. Would you be willing to just forward that to me and I'll make sure he gets it? Or I don't know if it got lost in his email. I don't know, Denise.
Okay, yeah, and it is also on the website for the date that we approved it. it's on there for that site, but we will get it. Roy and I will touch base and we'll get back with you tomorrow.
That's all I have.
Next, Mayor Pro Tem Fortune.
Sure. I was at Parab last night, and they worked really hard on their 2021 budget. So they're getting a head start on that, which is good. And they've put in just the golf disc baskets in Fields Park, which seems to be quite well received. And so they're looking at other parks to install them as well. And I was at Fountain Creek Watershed District. I just want those of you who know Larry Small, his last meeting was 2 weeks ago with us. So he is finally really and truly retired. And I don't think he's coming back. But he did great work for the various entities, so he will be missed. And lastly, I've just had a lot of emails and people requests that the city take a stand on masks. And I'll just throw that out there again. I certainly would like to see us put in an ordinance requiring masks or under the emergency declaration. I know that enforcement is an issue, but I think some communities have come up with creative solutions. So I would like to ask that we look at that. Thank you. That's all I have.
Councilor Chandler.
I just wanted to piggyback on Mayor Pro Tem Fortune. I know we all got several emails about mandating masks. I think we need to make a stand and mandate the use of masks. I just read an article by Deborah Birx today, Dr. Deborah Birx from the CDC, saying that mandating masks is going to be one of the major ways as we go into school in this fall that we can control spread of COVID, which we now think is spread by aerosol droplets. So I really agree that we need to take a stand and we need to mandate the use of masks. I know there was some discussion about how we would go about that, whether we would have to provide them for free or not, or that discussion has yet to happen. And I don't know if Jeff Parker, if you want to weigh in on the legality of that, if that's an issue, but I think I support the use of masks. Again, I personally am not going into town as much and spending my money because I'm not going to put my family at risk. I have several family members who are in serious physical conditions. And if I were to pick up COVID, those two family members could possibly die. So that's how serious it is in my family. And so I want to just tell you how strongly I feel about that.
So Mayor,
We have a comment from Judy Morgan. Yeah,
we
Judy.
need to not have that conversation right now, but the suggestion of putting it on for a future agenda is a reasonable request.
Okay, thank you.
Not
Very good point.
agendized for discussion tonight.
Very good point.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Okay. Julie, I see your hand raised, but let's let the other folks speak first, okay? Councilor Shada, do you have anything?
No, I support putting that on a future agenda.
Okay, in favor of masks. Okay, very good. Thank you. Councilor Wolberg?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to acknowledge all the correspondence that I've gotten on the incline, both for and against it. Because I don't respond to each one of them doesn't mean I haven't heard your voices. And I think it's important to know that I probably get 10 emails a day on the incline. I also get probably 10 emails a day on masks. Not all of them are in favor of masks, by the way, so I just want to be clear about that. And I think that other correspondence that I got this week was mostly covered by agenda items. We gave out a lot of food bags today at the Food Care and Share food drive. I volunteered. It was really fun and really helpful, and I encourage the rest of you to do that. And I want to give one more thank you to everybody who signed up for the blood drive. done many blood drives, and I'm usually begging people to do it. And it was so wonderful to have the response, and I look forward to seeing you guys on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wolbert. Okay, Councilor Bremner?
I'd just like to comment on the incline and the correspondence we've got. Has been, the correspondence I've got and the people I've talked to, it runs about 20 to 1 in favor of managing the incline. There are a couple people that have come out and said, open the incline, but in general, the response from the people that actually live here in Manitou Springs is to continue on the course that we're on. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Wolf, back to you.
I have more of a question than a comment. I guess this is a question for Mayor John. I don't know if we ever really got an answer to this, but when we get these emails that are sent to all of council pertaining to issues such as the one that comes to mind most recently is from Annie Rogers and Chip. And it seems to me that it's rude to not respond, but at the same time, I've been criticized for responding. So who's going to respond? Is someone going to respond, or is somebody already responding and it's just not reply all? So I don't know, because I don't think it's nice to have people send in their comments and then us to just ignore them. So I want some direction or some advice.
That's a good point, Julie, and Denise had called that to my attention today. I think we had talked about it several weeks ago, and then I don't think it was ever really conclusive. So my thought would be on, if there's an email that's addressed to all of City Council, then I guess my thought was that I would respond to it then, and then if it's okay, I'd blind CC the rest of you so that you're aware of it. So I'd have that. Now, in cases when a kind of a generalized approach is where that's useful, I would be happy to do that. If there's a topic where I think someone else in City Council is really the right person to speak to it, I would probably forward that and ask that council person to address it. And if it's a ward situation, I would forward it to that ward council person, if that seems like a reasonable protocol. But the blind carbon copy would allow the rest of you to understand that it's being responded to. Now, in general, I'll get a lot of emails like the rest of you that are to City Council. In those, I've probably been sort of haphazard on. I've replied to a few, but not all. Those that come to me specifically, I'm usually pretty good about giving an answer back. So if that sounds like a reasonable protocol, that's what I'll endeavor to do. Okay, I think Judith Thander had her hand up first. Judith?
May I comment on that, or is this not an appropriate time?
No, now's a good time.
Okay, because this is a really good issue. I think it's important for City Council to respond to people in a manner that so that we hear you and we thank you for your response. And I've had several people email me, and I haven't emailed them back, and they've emailed me like, "Why haven't you emailed me?" My approach is I acknowledge the person's email, thank them. I always copy Administrator Howell. I'm happy to copy the rest of council, but most of the time, their emails of, thank you for your, input on the incline. We're working diligently with the City of Colorado Springs. And as long as our emails are not committal in any way, but supportive in general, I think, and then we are CCing you, Mayor, or Administrator Howell. I don't see any reason why council should not, individual council members should not reach out to our citizens. I think they want to hear from us. If it's an issue that is out of my wheelhouse or above my head, I'm definitely going to defer to you, Mayor Pro Tem Fortune, and or Administrator Howell. But the day-to-day things, I think that people want to hear from us.
Thank you. And Julie, you were next. Julie?
So just for clarification, does that mean you're going to write back to Annie and Chip?
Are you asking me that?
No, I'm asking Mayor Graham about the email we got just the other day and all the other emails we got this past week regarding masks. Are you going to respond to all of them? Or, I mean, she's even a friend of mine, but I didn't even text her and say, wow, you know, I agree with you and thank you for, I ignored her because I thought we were supposed to. But if Mayor Graham is, you know, promising to respond to all of those people, then that's great. And then I will leave it alone. But I couldn't tell. It sounded like you were going to just respond to some of them. I just need clarification.
Okay, yeah, and honestly, I do need to be more uniform. And how we're going to handle this, we need to make it more uniform. I would be willing to do that. I think Councilor Chandler's sentiment is that she feels like she wants to respond accordingly. Is that correct, Judith?
Yeah, I think if it's just a, you know, a reply, you know, thank you for your email. We hear you. A supportive, you know, even if I disagree with you, you know, and I do disagree with some people, I never say that, but just thank you. Thank you for caring so much. And I really do feel that way. These people take time to reach out to us, and I want them to know that we are reading their emails and we do care. And that as long as there's a loop where you know, Administrator Howell or you, Mayor, and we're not committing to anything. I don't know if Jeff Parker wants to weigh in on this, that as a council, we are representing our citizens in our town, and I think it's appropriate. And again, Councilor Wolf brought up a really good point, is half the people that, you know, are emailing us are our neighbors and friends. And so I see them outside in my front yard and on the street, and I don't want to feel like I can't send them an email and say, hey, thank you. Appreciate your input. Really do, because I do.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, Mayor, I would suggest that you go ahead and answer all the emails that come in as you originally outlined, so that none of them fall through the cracks. And then if other council members feel a need, which is I get, to, in a non-committal way, respond in addition to that, I think that would be fine. But I think we need, and I think as was demonstrated this past week, that people mainly want to hear from the mayor anyway, in most cases. So the rest of us don't have quite that cachet. So I just think for consistency, to make sure none of them falls through the crack, it's just essential that you answer them all. And I would certainly go back the past week or so to pick up all those, because there's been a lot in the past week.
Yeah, there has been a lot, you know, so I sometimes think it is a little intimidating, the amount of time this can take. Well, I guess, how about we do this? For the next 2 weeks, I'll make the first response, and I'll blind CC rest of council. You know, kind of ask you to use your judgment if you feel you want to do a follow-on response. I mean, certainly that would be your call, and we'll come back and see how it's working the next 2 weeks. Would that be okay? Give ourselves a little time to burn in and see how this works out. If there's a subject or a topic that I do think that another council person would really be the right person to answer it, I'll forward that with a request to do so. Anybody have any heartburn with that? Okay, so that'll be the protocol then. We'll try it for 2 weeks and see how it goes. Great, thank you. Let's see, I did have one piece of council correspondence that I got that I thought was particularly significant. Was a Manitou resident. He was pointing out the traffic hazards on Highway 24 at the exit from the cliff dwellings. He several times in the last week had observed near serious accidents with people leaving the cliff dwellings, trying to make a left-hand turn to get into eastbound lanes on Highway 24. And that's a difficult situation. So I've called that to Roy Cheney's attention, and hopefully we'll work that through staff. Something else that individual made me aware of today was that the signal lights have been changed on Highway 24 at the Cave of the Winds intersection, and apparently the left turn lane the green arrow light has been removed, so that needs to be investigated. That's a dangerous intersection for people making left-hand turns. So we'll get that into the queue and ask city staff to take a look at that. I'd also like to thank Councilor Wilbrook for taking an active hand in the blood drive. I think that's a neat thing for us to do. I didn't get signed up, but maybe they'll let me loiter around and give blood anyway. So good. I think that concludes council correspondence. So now if we could, let's see, we're coming up on 8 o'clock. I would propose that we try to do our future agendas, the city administrator report, take a break, and then come back to our executive session, if that sounds reasonable. I don't see any opposition there. Okay, so future agendas, and we do have some things on the list that haven't made it yet to the agenda, but so be advised that some of the things that you've mentioned are working their way up in the queue. Do we have any nominations for future agenda items? Councilor Wolf?
I'd like to renew my ongoing request to put the bond issue on the agenda because now is an appropriate time for us to borrow money to fix our aging water sewer infrastructure. I've consulted with Ann Nichols about it, who I understand is our resident expert, and she encouraged me to keep pushing forward to try to get it on the agenda before the interest rates go back up.
Can I just respond to that? That we do have our financial planners coming and will be presenting, and we already have borrowed money for our water infrastructure for this year. That was part of the rate case. That's already been done through the Colorado Water Association. So that has already been managed. You approved that earlier this year. It was part of the consent calendar. But we do have them coming, I think it's next week, and they'll be presenting an entire comprehensive plan from our financial planner. So it is on the agenda.
Thank you. Councilor Wolf?
Thank you. This is a question for Denise. So when Ann, I think, told me that what you referred to is just for a small section, but that there's actually the entire infrastructure could use rehab that there is not yet money allocated for. Did I misunderstand that? Because I thought
correct. And it's year by year. We have a capital plan of what we do by year. So you have to put it in the queue for Colorado Water Works. So we'll talk about that next week. They'll go through and they'll discuss each of those. But you can't just borrow for, you have to have it in the queue for certain things. And their interest rates are much lower than anybody else's. So we found that to be better than even bonds, was to do loans, because we're a small municipality, and they'll discuss all of that next week.
Thank you. Any Councilor, Mayor Pro Tem Fortune?
Just mass. For future agenda, I would like to see mass on the agenda.
Looks like we have plenty of support for masks. Everybody in favor of discussing masks, raise your hand, please. We've got at least 4 there. I think it's unanimous. Okay. All right. And that one we'll try to get to pretty quickly, or, in the very near future. Okay. Any other agenda items that anything you'd like to see in future agendas? Okay. We've got quite a few things still to tackle. So obviously we're staying busy. That's good. Okay. Next item, city administrator report. Mr. Cheney.
Mayor, I reached out to the city engineer and public works on Highway 24 lights, and so we'll pass that information along for you. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise?
I have a couple of things that I want to mention. I want to mention that soldiers with the Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 68th Armor Regiment, and 3rd Armored Brigade Combat Team, 4th Infantry Division, partnered with our local park rangers and helped clean up part of the area up on the incline. They had to hike about 3 miles to help with a homeless camp up there and get it cleaned up, and so I want to recognize them for that. We will be sending them a thank you for all that they did for that. The other thing I want to let you know is we are working, city staff is working with the Creative District and the Chamber to look at parkettes. Talked with Mr. Parker yesterday. We're looking at what that would look like from an ordinance perspective and hope to be bringing you something in the near future for you to review from a policy perspective on that one. Today, Karen Scher served over 80 people want to thank everybody that supported that. It definitely is growing, and we're helping individuals and people in our community, our neighbors in our community as needed. So just want to thank everybody for leading that and for volunteering, and Megan for setting up the volunteers, Karen and Christine for organizing it. So thank you for doing that. The match board, Becca is working on that, and hopefully we'll have a meeting set within the next 2 weeks. I know they're down to 2 dates, I believe, and we'll be able to announce that meeting, their first meeting, and we'll get that advisory group going, or advisory board going very quickly and moving forward on those. And then I believe all of you received an invite that Chief Churchill has put together about a workshop, a community workshop. Please respond to him if you can attend. We're excited for this. It's a great opportunity. And Chief Churchill got us a phenomenal deal. We're only having to really pay for our airfare, which was about $800 for this, for them to come in for a 2-day training. So I would encourage you to respond so we have seats available accordingly. And with that, I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So it's 7:54 now. Our next items will be the executive session. I suggest we take a break till, let's say, 10 after 8. Sound okay?
May I ask a question before we break, Mayor?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just missed what Denise said in her first presentation, that they're looking at parquettes.
Parquettes.
I don't know what that is.
It's downtown where you open up part of the street, a couple of parking spaces, allow for eating or other things like that. It's the new thing for COVID-19 to allow more people and to be outdoors if they choose to during the eating time. So we're looking at what other cities have done downtown. Colorado Springs have done it. Buena Vista has done it. I believe Leadville, Westcliff. There's a lot of towns that are doing that now. So we have a group that's looking at that, and then we'll hopefully be bringing that back to you in the near future for you to look at from a policy perspective.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't familiar with that term. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
And just to be clear before we take a break, Judy, when we come back, do we log into the new link? Is that correct? You're muted, Judy.
So we can do it that way, or that would probably be the best way because it might take a few minutes. And so, yeah, so what I'll do is go ahead and end this meeting as far as the recording and as far as the meeting itself. And then there's a special executive session link meeting. And once the executive sessions are over, we'll go ahead and start this regular session back up again for the final coming out of executive session and final adjournment and anything that may happen in between there.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Parker has a comment. Mr. Parker.
You'd need to actually move into the executive sessions on the record in the public meeting. So we probably need to do that first, then recess and go into executive session.
Okay.
We need the motions and all that on the record with the public present.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
I'll move the go into executive session after break.
We need to recite the actual grounds. I'm sorry, you have to actually read the language. The courts are pretty strict.
Then I think Mayor Pro Tem wants to make that motion. So if I move to do that, do I have to read 1 and 2 in its entirety?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay, all right. Okay. I move that we go into executive session after break for number 1, an executive session for a personal matter regarding an employee or an applicant for employment unless the employee or applicant requests an open meeting pursuant to section 5.1A of the Manitou Springs Home Rule Charter concerning a complaint regarding Police Chief Brian Churchill's enforcement of the incline closure. And number 2, an executive session to hold a conference with the city attorney for legal advice pursuant to section 5.1C of the Manitou Springs City Charter and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, develop strategy for negotiations, and instruct negotiators pursuant to section 5.1D of the Manitou Springs City Charter concerning the closure of the Manitou Incline. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hands. Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. So,
Can I make a
Denise?
comment? And Jeff, maybe you can help with this. I just want to remind everybody when we go into executive session, it needs to be confidential. So if you're at a house and there are people around, if you could use your headphones or whatever that may be, we do need to keep that very confidential.
So at this point, then, my understanding is we can adjourn, and then we will click on the link for the next session, the executive session. So why don't we try and be back at 10 after 8? Does that sound fair? Okay. See you in executive session at 10 after 8. Thank you.